Morant with a running start. Elevates. Oh, he dunks. Oh, my goodness.
Tie game in overtime. Gasol will turn. His heave is good. Memphis on top. 7-10 remaining.
Conley now with three. Count it. A 15-point lead for Memphis. And Blake Griffin gets into it on the floor with Randolph. Hard to tell if there are any punches being thrown under there, but Griffin took acceptance.
Adams going long. Morant. He hit it. Ja Morant, insanity.
You gotta be kidding me.
Welcome to Grits and Grinds, a Memphis Grizzlies podcast. My name is Keith Parish. The Grizzlies lost to the Portland Trailblazers 122-112 on Wednesday night. They lost just their fourth game of the season at home. Unfortunately, they've now lost 6 of their last 7 games. The Trailblazers came into this game having lost 8 consecutive road games. Down the stretch of this game, the Grizzlies didn't get the offensive execution and could not slow down Damian Lillard and Anfernee Simons. Damian Lillard, who's on an all-time scoring binge right now, he's averaged 39 points in his last 11 games. He goes for 42. Dame and Anfernee Simons in the second half combined for 44 points. The Grizzlies as a team in the second half allow the Blazers to score 70 points, including 38 in the fourth quarter. The Grizzlies have allowed the third most second halves this season where their opponent scores 70 or more. It's kind of a weird novelty stat. I don't know what it means. The Grizzlies have a good offense. They score a lot. They get in high-scoring games. But the Grizzlies have one of the best defenses in the NBA as far as defensive rating, as far as points allowed per game. Yet, the teams with the most second halves allowed this season, where their opponent gets 70 or more points, the Pistons have the most. The Pistons are garbage. The Spurs have the second most. The Spurs are garbage. And then third, it's the Grizzlies and Timberwolves tied. They just have 6 games. Spurs have 7. Pistons have 8. So unfortunately, this has become a tiny bit of a habit where the Grizzlies give up a lot of points in the second half. Now, some of it is just individual brilliance by the Blazers' offensive players. I would even say a lot of it was. If you're upset at, hey, how come Dylan Brooks is getting lit up by Anfernee Simons and Damian Lillard, did you watch the game? Did you see the shots these guys were making? It was outrageous. A lot of these threes and jumpers weren't assisted. They were just one-on-one moves with players draped all over them. They were players pulling up immediately after getting screened, and it wasn't a failure of the defense to communicate or like a communication. Are we playing drop? Are we going over? No, the defender was up on them. They just made the shots. Good offense beats good defense. I think where this game was possibly lost for the Grizzlies, and this is not a huge outlier result. Losing to the Blazers, yeah, they'd lost a lot of games on the road in a row. Yes, the Grizzlies are an elite home court team, but losing to the Portland Trailblazers is not that much of a shocking result. But when you add it to the previous 5-game losing streak, you add it to a not that exciting win over the Pacers, a game where you were down by 19 to another team, by the way, that came into the game having lost 8 straight on the road. Then you see an overall pattern emerge and you start to get a little concerned. You start worrying about the cracks starting to show in what we thought was, one of the best teams in the NBA. My big disappointment from this game is I don't feel like the Grizzlies normally lose when Ja Morant plays great, when Jaren Jackson Jr. plays great, and then when Desmond Bane is fine. Desmond Bane was not elite in this game, but he was good enough. Ja and Jaren had awesome games. Normally that's enough for the Grizzlies to win. It was not enough in this one. It was enough to get you the lead for most of the game. But then in the final minutes, when the Trailblazers start making a bunch of really difficult shots, you find yourself in a clutch situation with, again, Damian Lillard, one of the greatest clutch scorers of all time. And Dame makes a couple of amazing dagger three-pointers in the final couple minutes, and the Grizzlies can't maintain that pace. So I'm disappointed that the Grizzlies lose a game against a not elite opponent when Ja and Jaren play well. I'm also disappointed because I feel like this was a game of blown opportunity where you had the chance to get up by more earlier in the game so you don't end up in a clutch situation with a team that has unbelievable individual offensive talent. Also adding to the disappointment is the fact that Jusuf Nurkic left the game basically immediately, didn't play. Jeremy Grant left with concussion-like symptoms. No Jusuf Nurkic, no Jeremy Grant, and you give up 70 points in the second half. Weirdly, the Grizzlies' East versus West record disparity grows. The Grizzlies are 15-16 against the Western Conference, 17-3 against the East. The questions I have about this game for the coaching staff, which unfortunately none of these questions were asked at the post-game media availability. One question, why did Xavier Tillman start? The previous 3 games, Brandon Clark had started. Brandon Clark and Jaren Jackson Jr. I've maintained is a strength of the Grizzlies. The Grizzlies are double-digit points better than their opponent per 100 possessions when Brandon Clark and Jaren Jackson Jr. play. And it's been that way for years. So initially when Steven Adams with injury, and of course that's a big factor of this, the Grizzlies without Steven Adams, not very good. They're bad at rebounding. The defense suffers. The three-point shooting suffers. And that's another bullet point from this one. Grizzlies are a terrible three-point shooting team. This was an atrocious shooting performance. Made 24% of their three-pointers. 9 for 37, their third straight game, failing to make double-digit three-pointers. This is their 8th straight game where they've failed to make more threes than their opponent. It's really, really hard to win in the NBA when you lose the three-point battle. The Grizzlies' formula for overcoming that shortcoming is second chance scoring and forced turnovers. Didn't get that as much. But so the three-point shooting takes a dip when Steven Adams doesn't play. The Grizzlies are a worse three-point shooting team percentage-wise. They make fewer of their three-pointers when Steven Adams doesn't play. If you want to come up with the reasons, you could say, well, that makes sense. He gets offensive rebounds, second chance opportunities, the inside-out three-pointer, better shots. Steven Adams is a good passer. He's also a great screener, elite screen assist guy. He's creating space for three-pointers, so we're getting better looks. But my question is, why did Xavier Tillman start this game? And while I don't mean this as a slight to Xavier Tillman, I mean, it is a slight to Xavier Tillman. I think Brandon Clark is better than Xavier Tillman. It's not even a slight at Xavier Tillman's performance, though. Xavier Tillman played well. Xavier Tillman had a solid game. He got 4 offensive rebounds, 10 total rebounds, 5 assists, 4 steals. That 4 steals tied his career high. But I don't understand why you're starting Xavier Tillman when your better options are Jaren and Brandon. And when you start Xavier Tillman, that means you don't get to those better options. And I might be wrong about this. I might be incorrect that the Grizzlies would have done better with Brandon Clark playing instead of Xavier Tillman. If you want to look at the single game plus minus, Xavier Tillman was plus 12 when he was on the court. A team best plus 12 for Xavier Tillman. Brandon Clark was a team worst, minus 19 for this game. That, of course, for me, shows the flaws with single game plus minus. You look, obviously, who do they play with? Well, Xavier Tillman played his minutes with the Grizzlies' best players. With Ja, with Jaren, with Desmond, with Dylan. Brandon Clark played his minutes with the second unit. Gross. Real bad second unit game. Also, I guess I'm bearing the lead. I forgot to mention Danny Green made his season and Grizzlies debut. Of course, you guys all knew that already. But my question is, why did Xavier Tillman start after they started Brandon Clark the last 3 games and those minutes went well and he played? You could say, oh, it's because the Blazers have Nurkic and you want to put a big body on Nurkic for defense. Okay. You don't want to get maybe Jaren or Brandon in foul trouble trying to guard Nurkic. I mean, I don't put Nurkic in the category of a player you have to swap your game plan around for. Maybe I'm wrong there. Also, Brandon Clark started the game against the Timberwolves, against Rudy Gobert. Rudy Gobert's a much bigger player. Are you more concerned that Nurkic is more of an offensive hub, and thus you want to do it matchup-based? That's why Tillman got the start against the Kings, against Sabonis. I don't know. But then Nurkic leaves the game, just a minute into the game, essentially. He doesn't return. The Grizzlies still start the second half with Xavier Tillman. And not only that, it didn't save Brandon Clark from foul trouble. Brandon Clark gets in foul trouble. And this is going to be the beating the dead horse part of the episode. I don't know how many times I'm supposed to say it. Why do you care if your backup big gets 3 fouls in the first half? Like a disappointment for me from this game, Brandon Clark played 5 minutes in the first half because of foul trouble. Ended up playing just under 17 for the game. Brandon Clark got 5 offensive rebounds in this game in his 17 minutes. Maybe it would have been good to play him more. How many fouls did Brandon Clark finish the game with? 3. The same number he picked up in the first half. I mean, clearly, maybe I don't have to keep saying this, but clearly they've made an organizational decision that we're going to use the excuse of foul trouble to force ourselves to play a deeper roster, to force ourselves to try out different lineup combinations. The bonus in this game for Brandon Clark going out with foul trouble, the silver lining to it was we got to see some of those Santi Aldama and Jaren Jackson Jr. minutes together. I'm interested in seeing more of that. Like I said last episode, they've been spectacularly successful so far in very, very small sample size. But it's confusing to me why you worry about foul trouble. If you're trying to win this basketball game, if your focus is just on winning this basketball game, of course, I don't think you take your players out with the 3 fouls in the first half. But they consistently look at a bigger picture. Maybe they're right. Maybe I'm wrong. I thought it was strange that you limited Brandon Clark's minutes. I thought it was strange you're worried about not playing him against Yusuf Nurkic. The end result of worrying about these foul troubles and starting your not best players is you get to this game where you don't play your best 5-man unit together until there's 3 minutes left in the game. The Grizzlies did not play Ja Morant, Desmond Bane, Dillon Brooks, Brandon Clark, and Jaren Jackson Jr. together until there were 3 minutes left in the game. They closed with it. So that, in my mind, makes me think they think this is their best lineup. Well, then why haven't we used it at any moment before now? That's my beating the dead horse moment. One of them. What happened when they put their 5 best 5-man lineup on the court together? It went terribly. Damian Lillard destroyed them because Damian Lillard's a monster and needs to be stopped. But maybe you're not in a 1-point game if you go to your best 5-man lineup sometime in the first 45 minutes of the game. Like if you're ranking the Grizzlies' best players, the best front court players, all right, Jaren Jackson Jr. 1, Steven Adams 2, Brandon Clark 3. I guess maybe there's a debate out there that some people think Xavier Tillman's better than Brandon Clark or Santi Aldama is better than Brandon Clark. I think consensus is going to be Brandon Clark is the 3rd best Grizzlies frontcourt player, and then you're debating between Santi Aldama and Xavier Tillman for 4 and 5. I think it's Santi Aldama, although he is not immune from the shooting slump from 3 that the rest of the team is going through. So Xavier Tillman is, by some measure, your 4th or 5th best frontcourt player. Obviously, Steven Adams not playing, so he's your 3rd or 4th best frontcourt player. Why are you starting your 3rd or 4th best frontcourt player? Because that guarantees he's going to get extra minutes. I thought once Nurkic was out of the game, hey, maybe they'll be bold and start Brandon Clark second half. No. Furthermore, Brandon Clark's not going to check in until there's a minute to go in the third quarter. Tillman played 11 straight minutes to start the third. And again, it didn't hurt the Grizzlies as far as holding a lead. They got ahead. They gave up their 10-point lead and they got it back immediately with a 10-0 run in the third quarter. But for me, it's the unprovable what could have been. Could you have outscored the Blazers by even more if it had been Brandon Clark? That I don't know. Again, respect to Xavier Tillman's game because he played well and he's been playing well. He's a very good defensive player. I like watching Xavier Tillman play a lot. He's honestly my kind of guy, my kind of basketball player. I just think there's a better opportunity. The same issue was with Desmond Bane. Desmond Bane got in foul trouble. Desmond Bane returned from injury. Here I go burying all the leads. Overall storylines of the game, and I haven't mentioned Ja Morant's near triple-double, the triple-double that was given then taken away, are Danny Green played, season debut, knocked down 1-3, airballed a couple others. Desmond Bane returned from his sore knee, was okay. He did get in foul trouble, played limited minutes. Through the first 3 quarters, he only played 13 minutes, excuse me. He then played the entire fourth quarter and ran out of gas, it felt like. Was it smart to play him the final 12 minutes of the game? I don't know. I guess I wouldn't have done anything differently. I would have left him in there. But it seems possible he did run out of gas, and the reason he played the final 12 minutes, not just that you're trying to win the game, but because he played so few minutes in the first 3 quarters because of foul trouble, I guess you're trying to make it up and let him play more. Would he have been more effective if he played through foul trouble and did not have to play the final 12 minutes of the game? I think so. How many fouls did Desmond Bane end the game with? 4. Didn't foul out. Plays 25 and a half minutes. So I'm disappointed by that. But let's talk about some of the good stuff. Ja Morant was awesome. Ja Morant at one point posted his 3rd straight triple-double and became the first Grizzlies player ever to have 3 consecutive triple-doubles. But then the league investigated. Secaucus looked at some of the 12 camera angles like we found out they did about block shots and steals and all other stat-keeping facts. They took away a rebound and he never got it back. What a disappointment. But hey, don't worry. Here's a stat for you guys. Ja Morant is the first player in Grizzlies franchise history to post 3 consecutive games with double-digit points and assists and 9 or more rebounds. Guess it's not as fun to say as triple-doubles. But Ja had a great game. The only blight is going to be those 5 missed free throws. 13 for 18 from the line. That's a ton of free throw attempts. But Ja Morant, 32 points, 12 assists, 9 rebounds. He did have 5 turnovers and missed those 5 free throws. And Ja led the Grizzlies with 3 made three-pointers. 3 of the Grizzlies' 9 made three-pointers were from Ja Morant. Jaren Jackson Jr. was unguardable. The Blazers literally had no one who could guard him. A disappointment, a letdown from this game is they did not get him the ball even more. He scored 18 points all in the paint. He was just blowing by guys for dunks. They have to find a way to get him the ball more. They have to find a way maybe to not take as many three-pointers. The other team is begging you to shoot three-pointers, and they are going to the entire season. Defenses are sagging off, packing the paint, saying, please shoot three-pointers. The Grizzlies obliged. They missed 28 of them. Jaren also picked up 6 blocks, continuing all his wild block numbers. This is his 11th game of the season with 5 or more blocks. He's still second in Grizzlies franchise history with the most games with 5 or more blocks. 18.7 rebounds, 6 blocks. Great game from Jaren. Dylan had the unfortunate task of trying to slow down Anfernee Simons and Dame Lillard. Watching the game, I have not rewatched it. That's my admission. Maybe I was wrong, but I did rewatch all of Anfernee Simons and Damian Lillard's field goal attempts from the second half. I don't know what more any person could have done. Dillon got lit up. He made all his 2-pointers, 3 for 3. Unfortunately, his 3-point slump continued. He was 1 out of 6 from the 3-point line. Also, Dillon 1 rebound. Dillon's not a good rebounder. We know this. That's one of the issues about not having Steven Adams. It's a known flaw. This is not a new roster flaw. This is something we know. Dillon Brooks, not a good rebounder. Desmond Bane, not a good rebounder. I mean, Desmond Bane averages, almost 5 rebounds a game. They are all the uncontested variety. They're almost all the defensive rebounds that just come right to him. So Brooks and Bane, not good rebounders. Zaire Williams, not a good rebounder. Tyus Jones, he's short. Sorry. The Grizzlies are not a good rebounding team. And going back to the beating the dead horse thing, we identified this in the offseason. You got rid of 2 of your best rebounders. Melton and Anderson were elite rebounders for their position. You got rid of your top rebounders. When Steven Adams has been here, it doesn't matter. Steven Adams covers all manner of sins. The Grizzlies are an elite rebounding team. The best offensive rebounding team still. Like Brandon Clark's a good offensive rebounder. Xavier Tillman has proven in the last 3 games he's been great on the offensive glass. The Grizzlies are still a pretty solid offensive rebounding team. Some of that is they're breaking a lot of shots. The more missed shots you have, the more offensive rebounds you can grab. But just looking at offensive rebound percentage, which is the percentage of your missed shots that you grab, the Grizzlies are still a pretty above average, a good offensive rebounding team without Steven Adams, but the defensive rebounding takes a dive. And it has hurt them in this little slump they are in right now. Let's talk a little bit more about this poor 3-point shooting. If that's not a great tease, I don't know what is, right after this short break. Don't miss it tonight, Thursday night. Hopefully you're listening to this episode on Thursday. Thursday night, February 2nd. Come out to Noble's Beer Hall if you're anywhere near Nashville, Tennessee, to join me and the other guys from Fast Break Breakfast for a Grizzlies watch party. We will be watching the Cleveland Cavaliers take on the Memphis Grizzlies. It's at 6:30 p.m. We have $1 off Wiseacre drafts. We have Grizzlies prizes we're giving away. Do not miss the fun. Hopefully see you there. 6:30 p.m. Noble's Beer Hall on Thursday, February 2nd. Okay, just a couple more stats and notes. The Grizzlies have lost now their last 5 games that Desmond Bane has played in, which is very odd. Before that, the Grizzlies were 19-5 when Desmond Bane played. The Grizzlies have lost 5 of their last 6 games where they score 110 points or more. Before that, they were 29-2 when they scored 110 or more points. The 3-point shooting numbers in the last 5 games where Bane's lost them all, like Bane's only making 32% of his 3-pointers. Over the last 7 games where the Grizzlies have lost 6 of 7, so Bane's making 32% of his threes, Ja's making 32% of his threes, Jaren's making 34% of his threes. Those are the good numbers. Yes, Dillon is in an extended shooting slump. In the last 7, Dillon's made 23.8% of his threes. But also, in the last 7, Santi Aldama has made the exact same number, 23.8% of his threes. Zaire Williams has made 23.3% of his threes. Zaire matched Danny Green with 2 air balls from 3. I think there were 6 air balls in this game on 3-pointers. I haven't rewatched them all. This is not the official count. I remember 2 from Zaire. I remember 2 from Danny Green. I remember 1 from Jaren. I remember 1 from Desmond. 6 air balls in a game. That just highlights the bad 3-point shooting numbers. The Grizzlies this season are making fewer 3-pointers per game than they did last season. They're shooting a worse 3-point percentage this season than they did last season. In the preseason, I basically spelled out how it's going to be really hard for the Grizzlies. In my mind, it seems difficult for the Grizzlies to make more three-pointers than they did last season, knowing the things we know about these players. You're going to have huge jumps from Conchar. It happened in the first 10 games. It disappeared. You're going to have someone step up unexpectedly and make a ton of threes. It's just simple math. You're taking away guys who made threes and you're not adding people proven to make threes at the NBA level. It's going to be hard to make more. For a while, they did average more. Now they are making fewer per game than they did last year. It's very, very close. I'm not going to act like it's not close. Last year they made 11.5 per game. This year they're 11.3. But it's not an improvement. And it's going to be hard. I mean, frankly, it's going to be hard to make a conference finals if you can't hit three-pointers. That's why everyone's talking about trades now. Like, I do think Danny Green can help. I'm not at all concerned by what I saw from Danny Green. That's Danny Green. I think he's going to help this team. I'd be surprised if he got traded. Of course, all the trade talk is heating up. I'll talk more about it next week. The OG Anunoby rumor still stays there. If you want to try to come up with reasons why Dillon Brooks is having one of the worst slumps he's had in his entire career, if you want to try to draw some off-the-court stuff to be like, is he concerned about getting traded? Or is he worried about non-basketball stuff? I don't know. We're honestly at the point where it feels like, maybe you want to make excuses for his three-point shooting. It's not that far out of the realm of something that you would see from Dillon because he's not a good shooter. We all know he's incredibly inefficient. But Dillon Brooks is not the problem. I'd like to reemphasize this. Dillon Brooks took 9 field goal attempts. That's what you want from your starter. He has to take three-pointers. You can't pass up open threes. Everything bogs down if you do that. I mean, it's a fine line you have to watch between passing up open threes that they're allowing you to shoot and staying aggressive. Maybe I'm speaking out of both sides of my mouth when I say you got to get Jaren the ball more, but you also have to take open threes. The idea being you're eventually going to hit some of the open three-pointers, I guess. I don't know if they're going to trade for Anunoby. It feels unlikely to me. The same reporting keeps getting recycled that the Pelicans and Grizzlies are both interested in maybe driving the price up for each other. I think a trade, if you're going to do it, maybe I could wrap my brain around a Dillon plus Zaire and a first or two, because the Raptors do seem more willing than ever. I don't think I would do that trade. But I was thinking there's almost no chance the Grizzlies trade Dillon. But now, I don't know. I am not certain. But it does feel like to win a title, you have to shoot three-pointers better. And I don't necessarily think internal improvements are going to be what gets you there. There's certainly a world where this team as is can win a title. If you can guarantee full health. That's not been the problem. We know when they had their top 5 or their top 7, the Grizzlies are elite. What we're dealing with now is if they're missing any number of their top 5 or 7, they're far from elite, and you get like a mediocre performance like this. By the way, the Zaire Williams stuff, he is now this season on shots outside of 2 feet from the basket. He's 27 for 34 on layups and dunks and alley-oops, as far as I can tell. These are all shots within 2 feet of the basket. If you get further than 2 feet from the basket, Zaire Williams is 38 for 121, which is 31%. He's even 8 out of 12 from foul line jumpers. Like straight in the middle of the court, about 14 to 18 feet away, 8 for 12. Even including that 8 for 12, he is 38 for 121. 31% on all field goal attempts outside of 2 feet away from the basket. Also a factor for this game, as we wrap up, is the Grizzlies fouled a lot. They let Damian Lillard get to the foul line a bunch. I mean, we had that weirdness at the end of the third quarter. A couple of a bad call from the official who called a foul where Damian Lillard went to the line. And then Ja Morant drew a foul, kind of soft, but it felt like a makeup call. Then, of course, Damian Lillard made a 75-footer after the buzzer. We nearly got 7 points in like the final 2 seconds of the half. But the Grizzlies fouled a lot. The Trailblazers had a 7-point play. You don't see that every day, where Lillard hit a three, got flagrant fouled by Zaire, made the free throw, and then dropped a three-pointer on the possession after the made free throw because he retained the ball after a flagrant. So that was less than ideal. But the good thing about the NBA schedule is they play again and have a chance to right the wrongs. Don't miss the game, 6:30 p.m. There's a watch party in Memphis. There's also a watch party in Nashville that I will be hosting at Noble's Beer Hall at 6:30. Don't miss it. Finally, a little bit of news. The Rising Stars rosters were released, and Kenneth Lofton Jr. was named to the Rising Stars team as one of the representatives from the G League. This is something new this season. They sent 7 G League players, so it was not the Grizzlies' first-round picks, Jake LaRavia or David Roddy, who make it. It was not second-year player Santi Aldama or Zaire Williams. It was Kenneth Lofton Jr., who's going to be headed to All-Star Weekend to play in the Rising Stars game. Pretty cool stuff for Junior. Happy for him. That should be another reason to watch. Oh, and by the way, because of this loss, Taylor Jenkins has confirmed that he will not be the coach from the Western Conference at the All-Star game. Conspiracy theories are the Grizzlies blowing these games so Taylor Jenkins can have a longer vacation over All-Star break. I don't believe that, but it is a fun conspiracy theory nonetheless. Anyways, I appreciate you listening to these episodes, particularly episodes after losses. I hope you're having a great Thursday. I will talk to you soon. Go Grizz.